You finally get invited. You're surrounded by people. Everyone is laughing. Everyone seems connected. And yet, there's a strange feeling you can't explain. A feeling that whispers, I don't belong here. Something is missing. Why do I still feel alone? A few hours later, you go home. The conversations are over. The noise is gone. And suddenly that feeling gets louder. Not sadness, not anxiety, just a quiet emptiness. Most people think loneliness happens when nobody is around. Psychology suggests something far more disturbing. You can spend your entire life surrounded by people and still feel disconnected. Because loneliness isn't always the absence of others. Sometimes, it's the absence of yourself. For more than 30 years, neuroscientist John Cacioppo studied loneliness, and what he discovered changed the way psychologists think about human connection. Loneliness is not simply a lack of people, it's a lack of meaningful connection. And often, the person we're most disconnected from is ourselves. So why does that happen? Why do some people feel lonely even in relationships? Why do we leave parties feeling empty? Why do we crave connection while simultaneously avoiding it? To answer that question, we need to take a tour through one of the strangest discoveries in modern psychology. Because according to psychologist Richard Schwartz, your mind may not be one voice, it may be an entire family. Richard Schwartz spent decades listening to people describe their inner struggles. And over time, he noticed something unusual. His patients kept talking as if different parts of them wanted different things. One part would say, I want to be close to people. But another part would say, stay away, you'll only get hurt. One part wanted connection, another wanted isolation. One part wanted love, another didn't trust anyone. It was as if multiple personalities were living inside the same mind, not in a pathological sense, but as different emotional parts competing for control. Schwartz began to imagine the mind as a large house, and inside that house lived different groups with very different jobs. To understand loneliness, we need to meet three of them. Let's start in the basement, the deepest, darkest part of the house. This is where the exile lives. The exile is the wounded part of you, the younger part, the vulnerable part, the part that remembers every moment you felt unwanted, the day you were left out, the time someone laughed at you, the moment someone you trusted let you down, the feeling of being invisible. Most of us think those experiences disappear with time, but they don't. They become part of us, and the exile carries them. It holds the shame, the fear, the loneliness, the belief that says, something is wrong with me. People will eventually leave. I don't belong. The problem is that these feelings hurt a lot. So the mind comes up with a solution. Hide them. Lock them away. Bury them so deeply that we don't have to feel them anymore. But just because something is hidden doesn't mean it's gone. Because somebody has to make sure those painful feelings stay buried. That's where the manager comes in. The manager's mission is simple. Never let us get hurt again. And to do that, it tries to control everything. It becomes perfectionism, overthinking, people-pleasing, self-criticism, constantly replaying conversations, constantly worrying about what others think. The manager believes, if I can be perfect, if I can make everyone like me, if I can avoid mistakes, then nobody will reject me. Then the exile will never have to feel that pain again. But there's a cost. Because the more the manager tries to protect you, the less authentic you become. You stop showing people who you really are. You start showing them who you think they want. And that's when something strange happens. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. Because nobody is connecting with the real you, not even you. But eventually, the manager gets overwhelmed. Because nobody can stay in control forever. No matter how carefully we try to manage everything, life finds a way to break through our defenses. A painful rejection, a failure you didn't expect, A moment where you feel humiliated. A night when you feel completely alone. These moments don't just hurt. They unlock something buried deep inside. And suddenly, the pain starts rising from the basement again. The exile is awake. The old wounds return. The shame comes back. The fear comes back. The feeling of not being enough comes back. And that's when the third part appears. The firefighter. The firefighter has one mission: stop the pain, right now. It doesn't think about tomorrow. It doesn't think about consequences. It only wants one thing: relief. So it reaches for anything that can make the feeling disappear. Endless scrolling, binge watching, gaming for hours, alcohol, shopping, food, even overworking. Anything that creates distance from the pain. Anything that lets you escape yourself for a moment. And that's why so many coping mechanisms feel addictive. They were never designed to create happiness. They were designed to silence suffering. The firefighter isn't chasing pleasure. It's running from pain. Now look at what's happening. The exile wants connection. The manager is terrified of getting hurt. The firefighter wants to escape uncomfortable feelings. Each part believes it's helping, but together, they create distance. Distance from other people, and distance from yourself. That's why loneliness can exist even in a crowded room. Because loneliness isn't always the absence of people. It's often the absence of internal connection, a civil war inside the mind. And when different parts of you are pulling in different directions, you feel fragmented, disconnected, alone. Richard Schwartz eventually realized something important. The exile wasn't the problem. The manager wasn't the problem. The firefighter wasn't the problem. None of these parts were trying to hurt us. They were trying to protect us. The real problem was that something else was missing, something most people never notice. Schwartz called it the self. Not the ego, not your personality, not the voice in your head. The self is the calm, compassionate center underneath all of those parts. Think about the wisest person you've ever met. The kind of person who listens without judgment. The kind of person who makes you feel safe. According to Schwartz, that person already exists inside you. And when the self is present, something remarkable happens. The inner war begins to quiet down. Imagine your life is a bus, and every part of you is a passenger. The exile is crying in the back. The manager is shouting directions. The firefighter wants to jump out the window. And somehow, a terrified 7-year-old child is driving. No wonder life feels exhausting. No wonder relationships feel difficult. No wonder loneliness never seems to leave. Because the parts designed to be protected have been forced to take control. But healing begins when the self walks to the front of the bus. Not to punish those parts, not to silence them, but to thank them. To say, I know you've been trying to protect me. I know you've been carrying this burden for a long time. You don't have to do it alone anymore. And for the first time, the self takes the wheel. Most people think the opposite of loneliness is connection. More friends, more messages, more attention, more people. But that's only half the story. Because you've probably already experienced being surrounded by people and still feeling alone. The real opposite of loneliness is integration. It's when the different parts of you stop fighting each other. When the wounded child no longer has to hide. When the manager no longer has to control everything. When the firefighter no longer has to numb the pain. And when the self is finally allowed to lead. That's what connection feels like. Not just connection with other people, connection with yourself. So if you've been feeling lonely lately, maybe the answer isn't finding more people. Maybe the answer isn't trying harder to fit in. Maybe the answer isn't becoming a different person. Maybe the answer is turning toward the parts of yourself you spent years avoiding. Because loneliness isn't always a sign that nobody is there. Sometimes it's a sign that a part of you has been alone for a very long time. And maybe what that part needs most is for you to finally come home. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.